The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Welcome to the bonus show, the shorter week this week because of the 4th of July holiday here in the United States. Just a reminder, there will be no new shows Thursday and Friday. The show will not have been canceled, at least not, I'm not planning on that as of right now. And everything will be working fine and will return on Monday, just letting everybody know so that every time we get dozens of emails from folks very flattered to hear the concern, but we do sometimes take holidays off, and we will be doing that later this week. So there was craziness over the weekend in Portland, Oregon, with the alleged attack against a couple of people, including a Quillette journalist, Andy. I don't know how the last name is pronounced. It's spelled NGO. Do you know how that last name is pronounced, Pat? Is it Go? I'm not even sure.
I'm not sure either. Your guess is as good as mine on that one.
Yeah. So this has been, I want to cover this on the regular show, and I may cover it tomorrow, but as is often the case, it starts to get complicated as soon as you dig into the details. There was the initial presentation of this as Antifa left-wingers, for no reason, just started violently attacking those believed to be right-wingers on the streets of Portland, including with quick dry cement milkshakes. And this guy, Andy Go, ended up in the hospital with bruises and a bunch of stuff. And then you start to get more information, which at least purports to claim that the right-wing protesters were instigating, that they had publicly issued threats to Antifa or whoever to come after them. Now, I think my instinct, Pat, on this is until all of the evidence is crystal clear, all I can really say is I am against any kind of physical violence, period. I just don't know how else to cover it, because every time you think you have a grasp on exactly what happened and who instigated and all of this, there's some additional element that's presented, and who knows what exactly happened.
Yeah, it's important to know who started it, why this happened, and what the justifications for both sides were, I suppose. But also, there is some stuff we can glean from this. Like, for example, you shouldn't be assaulting people on the streets.
No.
And also, the milkshaking thing that's kind of been taking on, and it's getting more popular in Europe, especially, where people are taking milkshakes and throwing them at politicians. It's proven to be a bad idea, especially because you don't always know what the substance is. And if we have this quick dry cement stuff that's now being used, put in like a milkshake cup and being thrown at people, that is super dangerous, and we want to make sure that that comes to an end. Yeah,
I'm completely against the milkshaking. I'm against the physical violence, etc. It just I am, I know that we are missing out on traffic because I did not cover this on the regular show today, right? I mean, this is a story that over the weekend, a bunch of the usual suspects who want to play up the left as being uniquely violent in some way, made a lot of money by posting videos that got hundreds of thousands of views, some may even get millions, taking a very definitive one-sided position on this. I just am not ready to take that position. It's sort of like when we had the incident with the Covington school kids in the MAGA hats and the Native American protester. We waited on that story because I didn't feel that we had the full story at the beginning. It ended up being that the original story from the left was not quite accurate, and there were some things that we needed to account for from the right. And we definitely lost out on traffic, but I just don't want to participate to the extent that I can, Pat. I mean, yes, we do a timely show and we've got to keep up with what's going on. I don't want to be pushing unbalanced half narratives on these issues is my point.
That Covington kid story, that was a bizarre one, I thought. I never thought that even should have been a news story, really. No one got injured. People were just kind of screaming at each other. Sure, the whole thing was on tape, so I can understand how that's easily picked up by media outlets. But yeah, the whole thing didn't ring like a story to me. This one certainly does. People are getting injured, and it does have to do with what's going on in the country right now. The fact that the person who killed someone with a car attack in Charlotte, Virginia, a couple of years ago has been sentenced, and that's kind of all this stuff is kind of resulting from that. The latest thing of neo-Nazi supporters going after Antifa and everyone else kind of getting mixed in. So this one does actually seem like a news story to me.
And here, let me say this: if anybody hears us talking about this, if you have a series of articles you can send me that you believe accurately and fully represent everything that should be known about this in order to responsibly report on it, get in touch with me as soon as you hear this, and then I will include an analysis of the story on tomorrow's program, which will include, I know the reason a lot of people have been contacting me about covering it is they suspect correctly that I am going to denounce the violence no matter who perpetrated it. And that's absolutely right. And to the extent that anyone actually associated with Antifa or not, or on the left or whatever, I am going to condemn the violence, and I think that there are some people who want me to do that, to be a loud voice on the left condemning the violence no matter who perpetrated it. I'm glad to do that, but I want to have a full understanding of the story. So please do get in touch and let me know what you think constitutes that full story. We are now getting to the point in the lead up to the 2020 census where if we don't get this citizenship question issue resolved, Donald Trump is now threatening to delay the census altogether, which again would be great for Republicans, and it's exactly what we would want to try to prevent. The controversy is that the Trump administration, through I believe it's the Department of Commerce, wants to include a question on the 2020 census asking about citizenship. And there is debate over the legality of it. There's very little debate over the actual, from serious people, over the actual point of it, which is to scare off even legal immigrants from participating in the census, which will undercount them. And therefore, because the census is used to determine how certain monies are apportioned and distributed, it is going to underrepresent certain groups in terms of how federal funding is going to be allocated. It also could even impact the way congressional districts are drawn and the way that electoral votes are apportioned for the Electoral College and the presidential campaign. So we know why the right is doing this. They claim it's all about just knowing who's in the country and all of this stuff. But the Supreme Court ruled to keep the question off of census forms for now. And President Trump is now threatening to delay the census altogether, which unfortunately, Pat, is great for Republicans. And this is one of those things where if they get the citizenship question on, it's great for them. And if they don't and use that as a justification to delay the census, it's also a very good thing for them.
Yeah, how crazy would that be, though? How unprecedented. The census takes place every 10 years, going back to 1790, and it's never been delayed like this. It's never been pushed back, certainly not a full year. And imagine if Trump tries to do that. I think it would just be like the latest attempt from Republicans trying to just upend our political system entirely. Like it reminds me of what Mitch McConnell did back in 2016. Antonin Scalia died with a year remaining in Barack Obama's term. He should have had the opportunity to nominate someone to the Supreme Court, and the Senate should have had a vote on that. And it didn't happen because Mitch McConnell decided that he wanted to break hundreds of years of precedent and just completely ignore the Constitution. I think that's exactly what could get attempted here by Trump and the Republicans, to just delay the census.
100%. And so how long have I been talking about the census at this point? I mean, for years, I've been saying, it's been years that I've been saying the 2020 election is important. The congressional election will be important, as it always is. There are key Senate races. We've got to vote locally. But 2020 includes the census. They're going to play dirty tricks. There's no one running the census. They're underfunding the census. And it's all coming to a head right now, and we'll follow it and see what ultimately ends up happening with it. Donald Trump Jr. has gotten, I mean, it's incredible that this is happening, but Donald Trump Jr. has now gotten sort of sucked in to a new type of birtherism against Kamala Harris, the Democratic presidential candidate and California senator. Kamala Harris was, of course, born in California, but her father grew up in Jamaica, and this is now being used in connection with some Twitter bots to spread a new sort of birtherism about Kamala Harris, saying she can't represent American blacks because her dad is Jamaican, and Jamaican blacks have different priorities and perspectives. She's an American. She was born in Oakland, California. in 1964, and that's basically it. I mean, the truth is so cut and dry, just like it was with the Barack Obama birtherism stuff. But this pseudo-birther attack went viral partially because Donald Trump Jr. has been retweeting it, as well as a bunch of Twitter accounts identified as bots. So I don't know which part you're more interested in here, Pat. The fact that this is a new birtherism, which once again the Trump family is involved in. Donald Trump Sr., of course, one of the main perpetuators of the Obama birther conspiracies. I don't know if we want to talk about the race angle, which is that once again, just black Americans are the ones who seem to disproportionately be the target of right-wing so-called "you're not really an American" birtherism type stuff. Or if we want to talk about the bot element that is here once again, there are multiple stories here, all interesting.
Yeah, well, let's start with this. Donald Trump reportedly said of his son, I think Donald Trump Jr. has the worst judgment in all of America. And I think that rings true. I mean, he shouldn't have left this totally off of social media. No one wants to hear Donald Trump Jr.'s opinion about the 2020 race, let alone the races of the individual candidates like Kamala Harris. Yeah, I mean, like if he would never say this about a white candidate. He wouldn't call out the race or ethnicity of someone who is, let's say, half Irish and half Italian. That's just not something that's going to happen. But Kamala Harris had a big night last Thursday. She really had a good debate performance, and I think maybe he sees her as an actual threat. Like maybe she could win the Democratic nomination and face his father, Donald Trump, in the 2020 election, and so he's trying to make sure that he gets out ahead of it and launch any attack that he can against her.
I think that is the most important analysis, which is I do believe that they realize Kamala Harris would destroy Donald Trump in debates. Her prosecutorial background, combined with just a very generally sharp wit, would make her a very formidable opponent to Donald Trump during debates. That being said, she is not the person with whom I most agree on policy. I mean, I think the bonus show audience understands this, Pat, but like when I say that Bill de Blasio and Julian Castro did really well in the first debate, along with Elizabeth Warren, when I say that Kamala Harris won the second debate, these are not endorsements and these are not agreements on policy that I have. And it's really unfortunate that a lot of people, probably not the bonus show audience, are reacting to me as if I'm saying these are the best candidates. I'm merely trying to analyze how they did. And as a debater, I think Kamala Harris would be extremely strong against Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's just like when we were watching the Republican debates back in 2016. There were some where Trump killed it, right? And he made all these other people on stage look like these hack politicians, and he was the person who was going to bring change to Washington. Even though at that time, we knew that Trump was a con man and that he wouldn't be a good choice for president and that all the Republican candidates on the stage were crazy, we can still recognize that to that group of voters who's going to be voting in the Republican primary, Trump did a good job. Same thing with when Rubio did a good job in the debates, or Chris Christie. It doesn't mean that we're endorsing them. I mean, we can just take a step back, think about how other people perceive these candidates and assess based on that who we think won. And last Wednesday, I thought it was Elizabeth Warren and Julian Castro who did a good job, and Thursday was Kamala Harris who stood out among the rest.
I actually had people write to me saying that Marianne Williamson genuinely won the second night, and I thought it was a joke, but actually there is a contingent of people that were quite taken with Marianne Williamson.
Well, she did get a good amount of speaking time, especially for being off all the way at the end. Maybe it's because she interrupted whenever she could, but I don't know. I thought she did stand out. She just, I thought, seemed kind of kooky.
Yeah, to me she stood out because she was saying really strange things, but I guess some people actually liked her. Okay, that does it for today. New show, new bonus show coming up tomorrow.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.